Welcome back to the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a New York-based pop culture and entertainment news website. I am so happy to welcome my next guest today. Her social media following is incredible. 7,200 Instagram followers, 28,000 Twitter followers, and 32,000 YouTube subscribers. And she has a plethora of an incredible singer, songwriter, and actress who's also, which I'm very impressed by, Lucy in Peanuts, Alice and Martha Speaks, and Apple Bloom of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Please welcome Michelle Creber.
Hi, you guys. Thanks for having me, Jacob.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. No worries. Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, so when did you get interested in the entertainment and music industries, and how did that passion evolve into the desire to pursue a career in those fields?
Totally. Well, my parents are both professional musicians. So from the day I was born, they were running a music school here in my house. And so I'd be sitting on my mom's lap while she was, teaching 30 piano students, and then go to my dad's room. He was recording an ISO booth in our basement, and I'd go up to the mic and record stuff for fun. And then they put on these big performances, big Christmas shows, big musical theater productions. And I always wanted to be up on stage from day one and sing with all their students and be in the recording studio. So it was a very natural progression. And I think it's one of those things where when you're born into it, it's just a part of your daily life. And there was never a specific moment where I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a living. It was just sort of my reality from day one.
And your dream has taken you a lot across the multiple fields of acting and music. I want to start with your acting first, especially voice acting, because the plethora of characters that you voiced: Lucy van Pelt, Martha Speaks Alice, Wendy from the New Adventures of Peter Pan, and also Apple Bloom for almost over a decade with My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. So what are some of the similarities and differences between these characters?
Well, I think the principles of any character in voice acting are the same. I think you have to be focusing on the same things, especially if it's a cartoon character. Like all those ones that you mentioned are cartoon based, and the principles of cartoon voice acting are, there's so many barriers between you and the audience that you really have to be specific about your tone and your choices and the environment that you kind of build in your head. Because as voice actors, we're just standing in a room, sometimes even by ourselves in front of a microphone, and we're voicing these characters who are in these very colorful worlds and very colorful situations. So there's going to be animation and orchestration and sound effects, all these things. So you almost have to be thinking about that and building it in your head by yourself. And that can be a very challenging thing to do sometimes. But once you master those principles it's almost like an advanced imagination, those skills cross over to any cartoon character you create and you approach.
And that's incredible. And I got to say, I love what your career is. You can go back from voice acting to live action acting, and that's very impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they're definitely, each avenue of the entertainment industry is obviously very specific to itself and requires specific training, but in many, many ways they cross over. And I've always been a big believer in just dipping your toes in every pool of the arts, because the more tools you have, the more different types of acting or singing or dancing, anything that you've experienced will help you regardless of what you're focusing on at any given moment. It all sort of comes together eventually.
Absolutely. So what have been some of the challenges that you've faced throughout your career, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
Well, the biggest challenge, I think, with anybody in the entertainment industry is a lack of consistency and, for sure, rejection. You can't have any successful career in the arts without getting rejected 95% of the time. Even the biggest actors in the world would have been rejected, 266 auditions until they, booked their first big role. If anyone ever feels like in the arts that they're not succeeding just because they're, getting rejections and they're not getting booked, that is beyond normal. It should be expected. And I think when you get into it young, it's easier. You have that skin built up. You know that's how the industry works. You learn to not take it personally, especially in film and TV, because it's just so subjective. If you don't have the right face that will look like your relative that character is playing, or you're not the right height, or you have freckles and they didn't want freckles, all those things are not stuff you can control. So you really can't take it personally. That's one of my favorite things about voice acting is if you come in there and you have that, you've worked hard on that voice and you crush it. It's a little bit more based on your skills rather than what you look like, which you can't, you can't control, and you shouldn't have to be concerned about what specific, your facial structure and all those little persnickety details. But yeah, I think you just have to learn to not take things personally and figure out what you can do on your off time where you don't have auditions. And even right now, like with COVID-19, film and TV is not going to be starting up again for a lot longer than many, many things. I mean, it's going to be one of the last things that kind of comes back. So you have to know what you love to do in your off time and how to improve your own skills by yourself. And if you're passionate alone in your room, like, just playing piano or just practicing an acting scene, that's when it's what you're supposed to do. If you enjoy it without any outside party, without any specific project, when you can just go for it and you're motivated to do it on your own.
That is incredible. And I think that's why I've been so motivated with this podcast and doing these interviews, because during this whole coronavirus and COVID-19 thing, because the thing is, I'm trying to hone my craft and also find my passion as well.
Totally. I completely applaud that. I think that's great, Jacob. Absolutely.
Alrighty. So let's transition from acting into music. Now, it's been 8 years since you recorded your debut album, Timeless Songs of a Century. So how have you grown as a recording artist since it was released?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding me of Timeless. That's right. 8 years ago. Holy cow. But that was a fun album, 12-year-old me doing a bunch of covers over the past, century. We did one song for each decade in the century, I think from like 1910 to 2010. And that was a very fun project. And I definitely loved recording and studio singing from day one, as I was talking about before. But I think it wasn't until about 13 or 14, a couple years after Timeless, that I really got into songwriting, writing my own songs fully. And partially that transition was, I thank Gabriel Brown or Black Griffin for that, because Gabe was always writing, and we did our joint album, Getting Stronger, and then like 2015, 2016. And so I learned a lot from him. I got very interested in songwriting around that age. Any songwriter looking back on their first pens, you can't help but cringe. You're just sort of testing the waters. And I had a very, very good sense of musicality and what I want things to sound like. But it takes a while to feel out how you're going to attach lyrics to a melody, to have the right flow, to have the right catchiness. And there's just all of these nuances that you kind of have to, that are almost separate from normal musicality, just doing things as a singer, like just reading a chart or just singing somebody else's song, is very different than building your own song. So that didn't really happen until 14 or 15 years old, but it's for sure one of, if not my main focuses. I absolutely love songwriting, and I think especially even in just the past couple of years, my focus has really shifted to that, and I feel a lot more solid in my writing, and my latest album I just think is a much better representation of what I want to do moving forward, and just has that more confident solidarity, I think, throughout with the sound of the music and all the foundation of real instruments with some modern elements. There's a lot of things you have to work out when you build a career path that's based on your own vision. I mean, you have to sort of create, again, it's like the voice acting thing. It's like you have to create everything in your head, and you have to, work in collaboration. Of course, you can't do it alone with many people. So you have to really work hard to clarify things in your brain. You got to make sure what the songs what you want it to sound like. You got to make sure you like the comp. You got to make sure you like the mix. You got to make sure that the lyrics will flow properly. There's all these things that you have to keep track of. And it's, it's been great with Storm because the new Storm album, which just came out on May 1st, which is the one that's been distracting me from all the things going on in the world. Finishing an album is a good thing to be doing when there's a global pandemic. It kind of keeps you distracted and focused on something. But it's definitely, I think, the best project by far, and really represents how hard I've worked to sort of hone in that specific craft of songwriting and producing all the different songs and stuff.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Storm, because I got to say, how did your songwriting and recording process differ from all those other albums?
Yeah, well, it was very much more organized. Like, I had a better vision overall, and that's kind of what I was just talking about. And to get more specific with that, my previous album, On Display, was my first solo all originals album. And I was very much testing the waters because I was passionate about all these different styles of music. And I had 7 different producers on that album. It was,
wow.
Yeah, it was very much an eclectic mix. And it worked with the title. It worked with the concept, On Display. All of these different things I love to do were on display. But with Storm, the main goal for me was to have a very cohesive concept and sort of a foundation sonically that would really feel like an album, and a really solid product that I could feel like if I handed to anybody, it could be like, this is me as a songwriter. This is what I want to sound like. This is what I want to do. So the process with Storm was a lot more focused, and 2 producers this time, 2 producers, and almost all based off of me recording a piano demo into Logic and then handing it off to 1 or 2 of my producers and getting those live musicians and getting those sounds, and then adding in some modern elements, whereas like On Display in previous albums, you'd have, an electronic producer creating the whole track, from their computer at home. And that can be an amazing sound. But I think this project was a lot more collaborative with a much more focused group of people. And it's created a very cool, I always go back to the word cohesive, but it's a good word for this, a cohesive sound, right?
Absolutely. Cohesive is wonderful sound. Wonderful world. Wonderful world. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you about your single, Like It Never Happened. So what is the story behind the song?
Like It Never Happened, I think, is one of those songs that I felt, any song you write, you got to feel passionate about it in the moment. It has to be something that you really connect to. But Like It Never Happened was not one of those ones that felt so direct to me. It was very much, I do have a treasure chest of all these letters and cards that I've received from, my closest friends and family members, all these important little mementos. And so those visuals are very much me, like old boxes I find on my old bed, and the letters and cards, remnants of eras. And those are all very honest statements. And that honest emotion of wondering if you could have done something differently when you grow apart from somebody, or when things don't go well with a friend or a relationship or family member. It's not about any specific relationship or friendship in my experience, but there's some friends that have definitely faded away over the years that, looking through that box, I was like, man, isn't that interesting how we connect with people, and they're so important at one part of our life, one era, and then over time, whether it's natural or through disagreements or anything like that, they can just not be non-existent in your life. So it's almost like that time never happened at all. So it wasn't so much directed to a specific person or a specific experience, more just a general emotion that I felt very connected to, and I knew that other people would emotionally connect to as well.
And I think first of all, I love the music video, because for those of you who do not know this, Michelle and her team actually recruited 4 dancers who actually interpreted the song while they were in quarantine. So how did you and your team select the dancers, and did you allow them to use their creativity for the choreography, or did you have a choreographer that actually helped them out?
That's my favorite compliment to get about that song, or not even compliment, but just statement or comment, which is that people are asking if it's choreographed or not. And it's totally not a second of it is choreographed. It's all the dancers just improvising at home. But I edited it so that sometimes, well, most of the time, the movement's sort of continuous. So, one of my friends would do like an reach, like over here, and the other one would have done something where they pulled something back. And so it looks like it's sort of one continuous movement. But that was just all sort of editing and placing certain things at the right time. But no, it's all those dancers are very good friends of mine, and they're all beautiful, beautiful artists. And most of them usually live here, but of course with the pandemic have gone back home. Most of them are in either Alberta here in Canada or Saskatchewan. So first of all, I miss them very much. And second of all, these are people who graduated from high school, came to Vancouver to dance and live in a bigger city. And a lot of them now have had to go back home and just sort of backtrack their lives that they were just starting. So it ended up being a very beautiful video, seeing all these dancers who, many of them always dance together in a company, dance alone and interpret the sadness of the song in their own way. It was sort of a lot more moving than I even intended it to be. I really am proud of how that one turned out.
And you should be very proud. I really think that hearing that it's impromptu, that they did it impromptu, the choreography impromptu, definitely raises the element for any recording artist that is recording music videos and are using dancers. Let the dancers' imagination fly. You don't need to have a major choreographer on them.
Totally. Yeah. The improv is one of the most beautiful things a dancer can do.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you. I want to go back in time to 2015, because when I saw this, when I was doing my research for you, Michelle, I found that you sang with one of my all-time favorite musicians and singer-songwriters, Billy freaking Joel.
Yes. Well, here's the funny thing, though. As much as it was super an honor to be on that soundtrack with him and do that duet with him, never actually met him. I recorded my part of, I would have loved to have met Billy Joel, and definitely a big fan of him as well. And he's just an amazing writer, and totally agree with you. So that would have been a major honor. But yeah, unfortunately, we just recorded my vocals here in Vancouver, and I'm not sure where Billy Joel recorded his, but it's probably in LA or something. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to meet him, but it was still a big honor to have recorded that duet with him.
And not a lot of people can say that they, from our generation or your generation, can say they recorded a duet with a legend.
Well, it's true, and that in itself is a big honor. So yeah, no, I don't regret anything with that, for sure. I'd love to meet him someday, but he's just one of those people too that you can just admire from afar and just know how much deeply rooted musical talent they have, and it's just something so to really admire.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Two of my favorite duets with him are with Barbra Streisand when they did New York State of Mind for their 2014 Partners album, and also Baby Grand with Ray Charles. Those are my two favorite downloadable duets. But however, every time he was with Elton John for Face to Face, or when they teamed up, that was another amazing collaboration.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, definitely remember Billy Joel and Elton John. That was a couple of amazing collaborations there.
All right. So speaking of collaborations,
yes,
who are your dream collaborators, singers, songwriters, and producers, and how would they enhance your sound?
Ooh, great question, Jacob. I would say my dream collaboration as a singer-songwriter to either do a duet with or write a song with or even just perform with. Sarah Bareilles is my main musical influence. I've been listening to her stuff constantly since I was about 10 years old. And she was one of those people, rare people, that struck that perfect balance between having top 40 pop songs. Like, I don't know if you remember, like, I'm not gonna write you a love song
I
by
love
Sarah
that
Bareilles.
song.
Yeah, totally. And like, #1 song of the year, was totally up there and on the radio, and it had that great pop sound. But she's right in between. So she's got these, mainstream pop songs, but the core of her writing is so real and so well thought out, and so not, factory based. Like, she's such a real musician and a real lyricist, and that's that's a similar path like I want to carve, is still having songs that can be universally accessible and have that modern sound, but really mean something, and are really, based in musicianship and artistry. So Sarah Bareilles, hands down.
Did you see
I would.
Waitress?
Oh yes, definitely. I was lucky enough to see Waitress when Sarah Bareilles was in Waitress on Broadway for that one of the runs that she did. And yeah, big that was a big moment. It was really amazing to see her in that role.
And I'm proud of her too, because Sarah is actually one of the few people from our generation and from of this generation singer-songwriters that can actually successfully have a Broadway show.
Yes, it's true. And once again, that balance that she struck between pop and musical theater, even. I mean, people who didn't usually love musical theater love that musical, and hardcore musical theater fans love that musical. So yeah, she's sort of one of those people who just learned to say the right things to speak to the masses. It's very beautiful.
Awesome. So let's talk about social media.
Yes.
All right. So what are some of your favorite platforms and channels, and why do they stand out? So like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube.
I've always been a big Twitter person, just because I find Twitter really easy to communicate with people. Like, you have one feed where people can make short comments. They can they can tweet directly to you very easily. And Facebook's harder in that way, where like if somebody wants to message you directly, it's I don't know, it's just less streamlined. Like, Twitter's super user friendly, and as much as it can then create negative energy, because people can just comment whatever they want, and we've all seen the dark sides of Twitter, and anybody talking about anything can create some very negative situations just on the platform as in general. I've been lucky enough to not experience anything super negative like that, but just from what I can observe. So that's the one downside of Twitter. But otherwise, I definitely like the streamline of it, and the convenience of the quick communication and people being able to ask questions about whatever, and sort of bringing in other people to conversations. It just is very easy to follow, and very easy to keep up with and be able to respond to everybody.
All righty. Second to last question.
Cool.
If you had the opportunity to meet with singers and actors who want to advance their career in the entertainment industry, what advice would you share with them?
Ooh. Well, it depends what we're talking about. If we were talking about music, I would say that, you have to find ways to celebrate your own accomplishments, because music is so non-linear. It's so up and down, and there's almost no markers. I mean, some years you go where you just work and work and work so hard. You work every single day. You work for hours and hours on end with you know, no opportunity to be able to look at yourself and say, "Man, I'm proud of what I've done." You really have to find ways to support yourself, and accomplish the work that you've done, even when the work doesn't always translate into success. And that's the same thing with voice acting and film and TV, I guess. You can work really, really hard, and eventually something will click, and you'll get, that luck will be the basis. That hard work and talent will be the basis for luck. I'm not a believer that any success is just luck. I mean, you have to be ready. You have to work hard enough to get to that place where you could even be lucky. You could even get an amazing opportunity. So in the meantime, before that, before those clicks and that happen in life, whether it's a big TV show, or whether it's an album that does really well, or a song that becomes a hit, whatever it is, in the in-between times where it's just hard work and it's just learning how to be an artist and how to, survive the ups and downs, you just have to recognize your hard work and be proud of yourself and know that eventually it will amount to something.
Awesome. So the final question, where can my audience reach you?
Good question. You can reach me on Twitter is a very good one. As I was talking about, I'm very good at responding on Twitter. Also pretty decent at responding to comments on YouTube on any like newer videos that I post. Facebook is harder, but commenting on Facebook posts is pretty easy to see. And if you're looking to listen to the Storm album or any of my other music, it's any platform that you listen to music on, whether it's iTunes/Apple Music or Spotify or Bandcamp, Google Play, whatever. It's there.
Alrighty, guys. Now you can download more episodes of Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. I recently had incredible conversations with Drew Lynch from America's Got Talent and my friend Sarah Ruman, and also Swaggy C and Bailey Dayton from Big Brother and a Challenge. So go check them out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. And also, you can subscribe to my social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. It is on Jacob, Jacob Elyachar. Once again, Jacob Elyachar. Michelle Creber, thank you so much for coming and stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Jacob. You asked some fantastic questions, and I was happy to be here today.
All righty. Thank you so much, and stay safe in Vancouver, and I hope that you have a fantastic week. And guys, thank you so much, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.